So
Are you good?
I was just realizing I was getting sunlight coming through that back there, but
Oh, you look good.
hopefully, hopefully that's okay.
You have a
I've
nice
not
Yeah.
recorded
background.
in this room I've just moved into a brand new house. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is like brand new. I've not recorded in here. I was like setting up the lighting last night, moving the Starlink on the roof, and hopefully,
Okay, well,
hopefully we're
welcome to
good.
your new home. That's
Thank you.
awesome. All right. Well, Nick, welcome to the Biohacker Babes. We're so excited that you're joining us quite early in the morning from Australia. So thanks for being here.
Oh, my pleasure, Renee. I wake up with the best bird sounds here where I live. I live really close to a nature reserve, and this morning it was a flock of lorikeets, which is a type of little parrot that they go in big gangs and little mobs, and they're just like chirping away, and they just make sure I'm awake on time. So here I am, ready for the
That's
biohacker
nice.
babes.
What an alarm clock. I like that.
Yeah, I need one of those. Right now, I have the construction alarm clock going on outside my window. They
Oh,
like to
that's
start
fun.
at 6 a.m. because it's Vegas and it's hot here, so the construction workers want to get, in and out early in the morning. So that's my alarm clock right now. It's beautiful.
They're allowed to do that? Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
6 a.m. Anyways, well, Nick, you are an expert in biohacking and longevity, two topics that we love to talk about. So we're really excited to geek out on some longevity science with you. So I want to throw a big question at you just to kick us off. What do you think is the biggest myth in the longevity space right now?
Oh, great. What a great question. Yeah, I think that it's that you can simply take supplements and use products and somehow live longer. I think that that is a vision that we are marketed at with that message, like just use our product and it'll be better. And we're looking for that because we've got aches, pains. We're feeling our age a bit more each year we're alive, perhaps, and we want solutions. And so we're trying to buy our way to a solution. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that most people make. And of course, there's a big myth behind that, that I can buy my way to longevity. I don't think that's correct. I think that that's a small part of a bigger puzzle you have to get right.
Okay. So the
Ah.
NIDIVs are not the only answer.
No, not at this stage. At some point, there might be the super longevity IV that rejuvenates you, but we're some ways from
Okay.
that right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I really love this idea, and I see that too. I think it's a huge myth that we can just choose more inputs, but a lot of people somehow like the inputs are easier than taking things away. But I'm kind of curious what you see as underlying causes of why someone would age well or not age well. And so, what are these things if we can't just buy our way there, that are really setting the foundation for good longevity, would you say?
Well, thank you, Lauren. That's a great question. And you just had a great guest, Matt Dawson from Wild Health, on your show not too long ago. And he made the same kind of point that I would make, which is that 80% of the equation is our epigenome, and about 20 odd percent, maybe a bit less, science is still being settled, is our genetics. And so when we approach this idea of epigenome versus genome, the epigenetics is how our DNA is expressed. And this expression of our DNA by the epigenome, it's like controlling how a cell expresses itself. So you can have the same DNA in all your cells, but you can have cells that make up your skin, that make up your hair, make up your eyes, your liver, your cells on your tongue, everything, same DNA, different expression of that DNA through the epigenome. So the epigenome is carrying this extra information that tells the DNA how to be expressed. And the really amazing thing that we've learned is that as we're aging, that signal is changing. It's often losing some of that information. However, through healthy lifestyle, a longevity lifestyle, good sleep, great fitness, nailing your nutrition, having quality mental health, paying attention to the environment you live in as best you can, even if there's construction machines out there at 6 a.m. doing your best. These are the things that are telling your epigenome how to express your DNA. And we can be more youthful or we can be less youthful with that, even with the exact same DNA. If we look at identical twin studies, same DNA, one's a smoker, one's not a smoker, one smoked a lot more than the other, we can see that the smoker looks much older They are much older biologically. They've got wrinkles on their face. They've got receding hairline. Their whole demeanor looks older. Their shoulders sit a bit lower. You can just see it. What is that? That's the epigenome saying, I'm old because you didn't take care of me. Versus the other twin who didn't smoke, they look more youthful. And they haven't even done everything right yet. And so this is the whole idea of you have incredible control through these lifestyle factors in how you age, how you approach longevity. And so that gives us some incredible hope. And we're only realizing just in the last few years how powerful this epigenetic signal is. And even more excitingly, we're just now able to analyze it and pinpoint even individual organs and tell you, look, this is the biological age of your brain, for example. And that's giving us some tremendous insights into what we can do for our longevity.
Yeah, the testing is really cool. Lauren and I actually, we just ran our test again recently, so we could see the organs. And obviously, we're genetically very similar. I think we both only had one organ that was older than our chronological age, if I'm correct, our lungs, which was interesting. But all of our other organs were lower than our chronological age. So, and we don't smoke. We don't smoke. So I don't know. That was an interesting one. But what do you think about these testing options? Because there are so many on the market. Do you think they're accurate? They're worth doing?
Ooh, so here we are, right back where we started, right? But our temptation is, can we buy our way to the answer? And
Yeah.
we can be forgiven for that because we are relentlessly marketed to. And marketing algorithms are getting better all the time.
Oh
We're
yeah, they're
just starting to
good.
see
They're
what
real
AI
good.
algorithms can do. I mean, you have to do
Yeah.
nothing more than practically think about buying a new couch and what shows up in your feed.
Yes.
A new
It's
couch. How do they know?
creepy. It's creepy.
Are they
Yeah.
Even
this?
after you buy it, it keeps showing up. Which I don't understand. But
Maybe you could just whisper, I already bought the couch.
yeah.
But the point here is that we want to buy our way to the solution. So I've got to come back to that point. All right.
Okay.
And we'll find some ways to get into the caveats and nuance in that. Here's one of the biggest challenges because of that. We have this tremendous market of people realizing that they have power and control over their health future from what I was just talking about, epigenetics, et cetera, all these different things we're learning about. And people in general, there's many who just want to take care of themselves, look good, feel good, don't even think about it as longevity yet. And so there's lots of opportunity to sell products. And so there's going to be many different types of tests, genetic tests, epigenetic tests, blood tests. You can continuously monitor your glucose, your hormones, all these amazing tools. And where are you going to start? That's a big question that I like to pose for my whole audience. And so we got to make sure we come back to that piece. But to more directly answer the question, yes, there's some tremendous resources out there. And being able to pick those and use them wisely is how we need to approach this entire problem, because there's an endless number of things you could spend your money on, but you have limited time, energy, financial resources to do so. So you've got to pick them well. And as far as testing goes, we want to get tests that we're going to be able to afford to repeat and keep using. So we can fundamentally follow the essence of biohacking, which your audience knows very well, which is measure, test something, measure again. What happened? Did it help my biology? Did it hurt my biology? Did it not really do much of a difference at all? That's the essence of biohacking. And so longevity biohacking is bringing in this longevity mindset and thinking that anything I start doing or determine is helpful for my biology, I need to be prepared to continue to invest in that thing, AKA a given supplement, over a long period of time, because we're often talking decades into the future. And so we really want to know things work, and that's what testing can do for us. So yes, I think having a go-to blood panel that you've shaped with the input from a medical professional, and you can test that what is it for you? Maybe you can afford every 3 months, maybe you afford every 6 months, maybe you could just do it once a year, maybe you can only get what the doctor will give you. Whatever thing that you can measure and continually measure over time in terms of a blood test, valuable, because you can find all sorts of things in there that you can tweak in your biology. You can see, do I need to have more iron in my diet? Is my vitamin D level right? How is my cholesterol profile looking? What's my insulin sensitivity, kidney function, liver function? These are all really valuable data points in our way moving forward that we can get from a simple blood test. And of course, then if you have some additional resource, you might decide to go for a true diagnostic powered epigenetic analysis. I've been to a lab in Lexington, Kentucky. It's amazing. What they can do is incredible. This is where you get the age of your lungs, like you were just talking about, your biological age, your rate of aging. And if you can afford to keep using that over time and test and measure and test again, then yeah, that could be a great test for you. But again, it all comes down to what resources you have and what are you willing to continue to do over time. If you just splash some cash at something to just get your biological age back one time, honestly, you probably wasted your money.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I see so many sides of that because for some people, they really need like this reality check, perhaps. But I like this idea of maybe you don't have the resources to invest in that one supplement that you were testing to work, but what lifestyle behaviors can we and are we willing to engage in long term to support what we were seeing in that snapshot in time test? So I'm curious for you, if we like throw out all the stuff that we can buy, the free biohacks, the lifestyle stuff, behaviors, what are you seeing really move the needle? Maybe just for you in particular.
Right. Yeah. So I love that. And you've made this point before, Lauren. I think that if you take a test and it kicks your butt into gear, it's worth it. If it sets off something for you to change how you're doing things, it's worth it. And so if I'm just going to repeat back to you, just make sure I understand your question, you're looking to throw out the things that we can buy and focus on the biggest changes that
Lifestyle,
are free.
behaviors, mindset,
Yes.
things that are free.
Right.
They don't cost anything because if you're saying we need to invest in that supplement for decades, if it works, that's a big investment. But
It is.
behaviors are free if we're willing to commit to them. So
Behaviors are
what's
free.
worth it in your mind in terms of lifestyle behaviors?
Yeah, brilliant, Lauren. I think that's where most of us want to start because there is so much we can do for free once we have the knowledge. And then putting that knowledge into practice takes a bit of discipline and motivation. And we are in a day and age where access to the information we need is becoming more and more incredibly easeful all the time. The fact that we can, AI models are not perfect, but we can ask them questions, complex questions about health or lifestyle for free in many cases is one great example of where this is moving. And so the biggest thing that I say that we need to do for free is get our mindset right. And in fact, at my business, A Longer Life, this is where I've decided to really focus in my efforts is building a framework to help people through this longevity journey, because it's not a straightforward thing. We've already talked about the biggest element of getting started, which is you get overwhelmed. You get excited, like, oh, I'm going to live for a long time. This longevity thing's happening. And I've listened to the biohacker babes and I've seen longevity hackers and I want to do this thing. I'm excited. You start looking around for where to get started. You immediately find yourself in overwhelm because you just get the barrage of marketing and you don't know where to start. So I've built this 4-part framework on A Longer Life on my website, nickengerer.org, that goes through progressively what you need to do, all for free. The first part of the framework is getting a longevity mindset, progressing to a longevity strategy, learning about these longevity lifestyle factors, and then number 4, working with longevity technology, which is where you can go spend your money and have fun. Most people start all the way at the end, just buying what they saw on Instagram. Right?
Yeah.
But we're going to come all the way back to the beginning and get our mindset right. That's the biggest thing you can do for free. And so I've actually built a free longevity mindset course that you can find on my website. And it lays out what a longevity mindset is and how to start implementing it. And the biggest thing that we want you to realize is that you have all these ideas about what aging is going to mean for you that have been subconsciously programmed by no fault of your own, from no nefarious angle, just for how society works. I mean, we've moved from cultural values into societal values that are focused on productivity, consumption, and that's just a product of our society. It's no one's particular fault. There's nothing evil going on there, but it has separated you from meaning and purpose, and it has resulted in overconsumption. And all around you, people are getting sick at early and earlier ages. And you see it in your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, your neighbors, in media, that people become older and they get sick and they get weak and they become dependent. And that is one very common narrative. However, it is not destiny. Disease is not destiny. And so what we bring people through is these two key realizations that a longevity mindset has. The first being that disease is not destiny. And the reason that that's the case is because you have power over your health future, looping all the way back to the beginning of our discussion, through epigenetics, through learning how to implement all these longevity lifestyle factors in your life, mostly for free. Still answering your question. And then the second realization is that the longer we stick around, the more technology is here to keep us healthy. And that's an incredible future in front of us. And so there you go. For free, you can go learn about longevity mindset on my website. And that's going to set you up for making the right decisions over decades into the future.
I love that. Yes.
So you bring up a good point about the technology, because I mean, I'm 38 now. I can only imagine when I'm 50 what we're going to have in the longevity space. So for someone maybe in their 20s and 30s that says, oh, you know, by the time I need whatever, it'll be available when I'm 60 or 70. So why bother with the longevity lifestyle practices now? I'll be able to just inject, you know, stem cells to regrow my liver or whatever in 20, 30 years. So what would you say to someone like that that's maybe not quite in that mindset?
Well, I think that's they're already getting the right mindset by even thinking that way. So there's a bit of both going on here, Renee. I love your question, because there's this potential in the future for all this technology to come down the pipeline to enable rejuvenation and to help us live healthier for longer, and that's full of incredible promise. And so then, you know, your kind of provocative question is, well, then if I realize that, why should I do anything at all? Because what will become available in 10, 20 years, it's going to solve all my problems. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that that's a mistake to assume that that's the case, because biology is complicated. And if you listen to the experts in longevity and understanding aging, they're saying, hey, glad you're all very excited about this longevity thing, but we still do not understand a lot about aging biology. And we don't know how far away true rejuvenation is. And so the principles we've got to work back to, our first principles, come back to what we have the most knowledge of. And when you are young, when you are youthful, you are expressing adaptation in your DNA very, very well, because part of youthfulness is, in terms of evolutionary biology, is this ability to adapt to your environment. And when you're young, that is your opportunity to build the strongest, most resilient body and program that information into your epigenome to say, this is my strongest, most resilient self. Remember that, because your epigenome does remember that. If you strength train, you endurance train, you peak your VO2 max, that you're climbing to your peak, and your peak is where you decline from. So when you're in your 20s and 30s, you have the chance to push that needle, to push that peak as high as possible, from which then this gradual decline of aging then falls off. So this is the time to get to be your fittest, strongest, most resilient self, and to have that pay dividends many decades into the future. And so when I go to the track and I'm running my intervals with my triathlon and running club, and I've got some younger guys there with me, and they're in their early 20s, I know that they are going to recover faster than me tomorrow. They're going to show up and be able to push harder than me tomorrow, and they're going to be able to push that peak higher than me. But I have the same power in my epigenome versus someone who's 10 years older than me, because that adaptability is declining. And that's part of what's going on in aging itself, in terms of the evolutionary biology lens, is that our ability to adapt, to recover, is declining. And that's one of the primary reasons that we, in fact, do age, through the evolutionary biology lens. So again, coming back to the question, the most powerful thing you can do right now in your 20s and 30s isn't just wait for something to come in the future and save you, but think, hey, this is my chance, again, to build my strongest, most resilient self, so that I will have the most function as I grow older.
Mm, that's great. Great answer.
This kind of analogy that I was creating in my mind of what you were saying of like this mountain. If we climb a higher mountain, there's going to be a longer way down, which is the decline in the age. But to get up that mountain, we really have to have this discipline, motivation, longevity mindset. And what I've heard you talk about, like a curiosity and a growth mindset. So I'm curious about maybe these personality traits that help us to even set forth on a goal of making that peak. How do those personality traits play into your practices or what you see in your audience?
Oh, this is so juicy. I love that you asked this question, Lauren. And the thing that I'll point out at the beginning is that you mentioned this concept of growth mindset. So we have this concept presented to us by Carol Dweck in the 2000s, that mindset can either be fixed or it can be a growth mindset. Fixed meaning I can't change my abilities, I can't change my capability. It's all based on talent, natural skill, etc. When you see the violin prodigy or somebody who's sprinting really fast at the track, they were born that way. Versus the growth mindset sees that this type of achievement is based off of hard work. If I put in the effort to gain new knowledge and skills, I can improve and change myself. In terms of shifting that to a longevity mindset, that is actually how we change our view of our health future. When we see, wait a second, I don't have to just get old and sick and weak and dependent just because that's what my fixed mindset believes. That's how I've been subconsciously programmed. But in fact, I can change my health future by putting in the hard work, by putting in the effort. That is the growth mindset in the longevity lens, is that if I'm actually working hard and trying to change my health future, I can. And in fact, I will. And in fact, I'm very confident that if someone takes what they hear on this podcast, it could be from me or it could be from Matt Dawson or previous guests talking about lifestyle factors, and tries to do the best they can at those lifestyle factors alone, they can add 5 to 10 years of healthy life. And again, going back to the previous answer, what will that get you in terms of technology in the future? That's pretty exciting. And so, but to know how to implement that in your life, you have to understand your own personality. And you have to understand what motivates you, what gets you up in the morning, what your challenges are. Some of us are going to be what we would call quite type A, go out and achieve. Others are not going to be so motivated by accomplishment or reputation. They might be more motivated by their creative instincts, things that make them feel good or make them feel safe, depending on whether they're extroverted or introverted. And in fact, I have decided that this mindset thing is so important that I've begun to study psychotherapy. And we're currently talking about different characterological traits that we develop when we're younger in order to keep ourselves safe. And then these have impacts on how our body develops and what health problems we end up having. And so somebody might be really wide and broad and stable and grounded, and they might be really good for having a regulated nervous system, but then they might not have so much motivation for getting out there and doing all these hard things we're talking about, like sweating at the track, versus somebody who's a bit more lean and ready to get out of there and run. They're going to be great as an endurance athlete, but they probably lack some of that nervous system regulation of the more grounded individual. So there's lots of different ways of looking at this, all coming back to the point being you have to know yourself and what motivates you and where your challenges are so that you can start to think, okay, these are the supports I need. For myself, I need to make sure I can be really grounded and regulated to my nervous system and practice that every day. I know I'm going to have the motivation to go on that run later today. It's just going to be there. It would be very different for someone else. So it's about knowing yourself and knowing what your positive traits are in terms of your health, and what those traits that are not so healthy are, and being able to lift yourself on that unhealthy side with the things that support you, and know how to play to your strengths in a way that allows you to lean into motivation. And the last thing I'll say is you mentioned the word curiosity, and that is powerful for anyone, regardless of your character traits, regardless of your personality traits. If you can be doing something that you find interesting and curiosity fuels you in your lifestyle, in your fun hobbies on the side, that's going to be giving you pleasure and enjoyment and meaning and purpose in your life. And if you can turn that into a career like both of you have, all the better, because then you're living out purpose. And that's going to make you want to live longer because you enjoy being here.
Yes, that's a very good point. If you don't enjoy being here, then why would you extend your years here? So, yeah, and you're speaking my language because for me, yeah, it doesn't take a lot of motivation to go to the gym. That's like, I work out every day. I don't really even think about it. Versus nervous system regulation, that's like something I'm constantly working on in the biohacks that I'm having to do every day. So, yeah, very interesting. You have to, meet someone where they're at, really.
Always. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Nick, I'm curious about your opinion on nutrition. Obviously, there's a huge bio individual component here, but there's these nutrition wars online at all times. And, we even saw with the blue zones, which I would love to hear your opinion on the blue zones as well, because I know some of that is getting debunked. But even when you look at them, they're eating different, right? Whether it's purple potatoes or it's corn or it's no alcohol and no sugar, it's all over the place. So what do you think in the space of nutrition we should be looking at for longevity?
So the simple answer is that the best quote diet for you in terms of your longevity is the healthiest one you can stick to and keep
Ooh,
doing. Right. So if
okay.
we're going to really boil it down to its elements, we don't want to be yo-yoing all over the place, changing, binging out, eating terrible, coming back, eating healthy for a while, swinging back the other direction because we can't sustain that. Your biology wants to adapt and be in homeostasis. It's trying to do that. And your nutrition is a signal to your body about what's in your environment, what it should consider friend or foe. And in fact, that regulates your whole immune system. And there's so much here. You're right about that, Renee. Like, it's again another spot of being quite overwhelming. And so I
Yeah.
encourage us to take the word diet and throw it out the window and come back to the word nutrition as our anchor point for this discussion. When it comes to longevity, we want to be thinking about nutrition. Are we giving our body the resources it needs to be healthy, robust, and sustain that homeostasis over time, that balance over time? And
Mm.
so we think of diet, we start getting into the tribalistic aspects of, okay, should it be vegan? Should it be vegetarian? Should it be pescatarian? Should it be carnivore? That's it.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
maybe it's keto or it's fruitarian. Look, I have done a
Crazy.
lot of these different diets. I was into that when I was younger and in my 20s. I ate like so many bananas being a fruitarian for a while. I was vegan. I did keto for a whole year. And you know where I have felt the best? I have felt the best on a balanced, healthy diet that does
Yeah.
all the basics that you've heard about over time. The most recent things that people are freaking out about, of course, seed oils, and there are some concerns in that space, but you're not going to achieve longevity just by relentlessly getting rid of seed oils in your diet and not being able to go to the restaurant and say, like, what have you cooked this in? No, I can't eat it. Because nutrition, there's more going on there than what you just put in your mouth. Because if you go so far with a diet that you don't go out with your friends and you don't eat with your family and at your shared cultural meals, whatever your background might be, you are really missing out on something more soul nourishing than actual body nourishing in terms of the eating. So you got to remember that it's the healthiest thing you can stick to. You want to be able to enjoy time with friends and family and socialize because that's incredibly important. You don't want to isolate yourself. And then you want to back up what you've chosen in terms of the healthiest diet you can stick to with some data, with some blood work, with some knowledge about your genetics and what you might need to supplement. And so I think that there's a lot of evidence that we need to get an ample amount of protein. Most people don't get enough protein, in my opinion. It's a big thing to pay attention to. In terms of the longevity debate, there's a bit going on there. Like, should we really restrict protein and calorie restrict and fast all the time? Or should we tilt more toward eating higher protein diets? And there's a great debate going on there, and I can't tell you with certainty which one of them is correct. However, I don't lean toward the caloric restriction side. I lean toward give your body the resources it needs, particularly protein. And for individuals who are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, that protein component is becoming more important over time. You need to be increasing the amount of protein you eat because your ability to digest it and synthesize it is decreasing while your need for it and repair is going up. So it's not simple. It changes as you age. You got to back it up with some data. And I'll give you a great example because I love eating cheese, but my blood lipids, my ApoE, my ApoB, sorry, my ApoB, not ApoE, ApoB levels, apolipoprotein B go up if I'm eating a lot of saturated fat. I got to cut back the cheese. And I don't like that because I think cheese is delicious and I want to eat pizza with my son. So sometimes I do it, but I know in general, I got to stay away from eating too much saturated fat because my individual response in terms of those unhealthy lipoproteins is that they go up and that's not so good for my longevity. So the data has helped me tweak that.
Yeah, that's very eye-opening.
Yeah, we've learned a lot from data and genetic testing. Like Renee can't tolerate saturated fat the same as I can. So I think that's like a whole other level. I just wanted to speak to the balance piece because I think this is another example of really know yourself, know your weaknesses, know your strengths. Because I work with a lot of very sick people. And so balance is not going to be their MO. So therapeutically short term, maybe not going to a restaurant is going to benefit you, but I agree long term, definitely engaging in community and nourishing your soul and having joy and play and conversation is probably what's going to get us much further. But I just mentioned that because I know there's some people that are like, oh, permission, I can eat balance. So know yourself, right? I think you probably agree with that.
You're right on with that, Lauren. Yeah. And you've mentioned this in a therapeutic way, and that, okay, so sometimes it's going to be valuable to completely restrict something. This is why people recover so miraculously on carnivore diet, for as one example, or any other restrictive diet, because you've cut out something that was aggravating you, that your immune system wasn't happy about, and you've also nourished yourself with something that you were missing. So plants are not necessarily your friend. They have lots of compounds, lectins being one example. Dr. Gundry loves those, or hates them, I guess, right?
Hates them, yeah.
Binds up your nutrients. Yeah, like you can't eat oats. Dave Asprey says you can't eat oats because the phytic acids.
Or kale. Or kale
is really bad for you. And like, look, these things, there's parts of these things that are true in isolation, but ultimately, what's going on there? What if we really figure out what is actually happening there? The most important thing that I think you can take away is that your immune system, so much of its information gathering about your environment, which is what it determines as friend or foe, is happening in your digestive tract. It's happening at the lining of your gut, most of it in the small intestine, where you have your white blood cells on guard, saying, okay, what's coming into the bloodstream? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And when it's overwhelmed because the wall of that is leaky, or it's doing too many things, it's got a lot of inflammation, it doesn't have enough resources to keep doing that patrolling, inflammation in our body goes up. So sometimes we need to really restrict the plants we're eating in order to gradually bring them back in so our immune system can relax, chill out, and be like, okay, this thing's okay. This diet, this piece of information is okay. I can let this part of the environment come into my body. That's okay. And then building back up plant diversity in our diet over time with things and seeing how we respond, we can actually get our immune system to be more accepting and less inflammatory or responsive to these plants. And so it's sometimes important to restrict them for a while and then bring them back in. There's a whole theory here in terms of inflammation being driven by diet, but also being regulated by a diverse diet, because when we're eating plant diversity, we're telling our body all these things are safe. And therefore, you don't have to be inflamed in response to eating them. And one of the most powerful things I did for free to improve my biological age through glycan age testing was actually to increase the diversity of plants in my diet to over 30 different types a week. And that improved my glycan age by 6 to 9 years, just doing that. However, if I was somebody who was very immune responsive to plants, that would not have been the case. I would have had to maybe go do some really plant restricted diet for 6 months, let my immune system reset and gradually build back up. So again, to your point, Lauren, a lot of nuance in there, a lot of self knowledge.
Know yourself. And just in contrast to that, like overly stressing about something is not helpful either, because I have the opposite, the clients that are not so immune sensitive, but they eat one piece of sugar and then they text me, oh my God, am I going to fall off the plan? Is everything ruined? I'm like, well, yeah, because you're stressing about it. Like the way that you choose to think about that event is actually worse than the event itself, I believe.
Oh, that's mindset, isn't it?
That's mindset.
Yeah.
That is mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think stress piece is huge. And maybe we talked about this on Dr. Dawson's episode about our great aunt who is 100 now. I think that she's had pretty low stress. And I think that is potentially the number one key to her longevity. I would agree.
Sure, I would agree, because the stress piece is telling us and our body and our epigenome that our environment is not safe. And if our environment is not safe and we are not safe, we're always on guard. We're not in a more parasympathetic state, and we're not recovering. We're not in that relax, that rest and digest, that a lot of the repair happens in our body. The most principal period of which is for our sleep. Like, can your body really let go? Can you really drift off into that deep sleep and stay asleep? As one point around stress. And when you're moving through your day, are you continually experiencing that the world, that your environment is not safe? Because if you are experiencing that, then looping right back to that immune system, your immune system knows that. It knows that it's not safe. I have to be ready. Inflammation, send out more mast cells, send out more white blood cells. Let's be ready to fight. And that is going to mean you get less nutrition. And that means you're going to deplete your resources in your body more. And there is simply so much science behind this stress component, this mental health component, and longevity, that it rises up to the surface as one of the most important things you can attend to. And Renee, you mentioned the blue zones, right?
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
You're right that the statistics on it aren't quite correct. And that there's probably not just 5 blue zones. There's more than that. Dan Buettner, you have to remember, he's quite a pioneer. He was doing this work way before anybody else was, way before we understood all the things we understand about aging. And he did land on something. There are areas where there's people who are living healthier for longer in the world because they're getting a lot of things right. And I think there's 2 key components going on there in terms of mental health. And one is that these people are embedded in community and have purpose. They're still doing their gardening. They're still helping out. They're still part of a family unit, of a community. They wake up each day and they feel belonging and purpose, camaraderie, friendship, culture that's rich in their lives. And that is really, really good for them. And they're also living in places where their environmental stressors are pretty relaxed. I was in Costa Rica at the start of 2024, where I was shooting a docuseries called Reverse, The Race for Longevity. And you can watch that now, I think, on Tubi, on E360, a few different platforms, and people can head to my website.
I saw it on YouTube. I think I watched it on YouTube.
Some of the episodes are also on YouTube if you want to get crafty. Yeah. And so if you look at what's going on in Costa Rica, which is parts of that are a blue zone, they live in this pristine country where their primary cultural value is the environment. You literally say to each other, for most anything, pura vida, meaning the pure life. And all their economy is wrapped up in keeping places pristine and beautiful. So when the tourists come, they can see the amazing animals and waterfalls and volcanoes and just beautiful greenery all around them. And they live in this environment that they've prioritized to keep pristine because it's their cultural value. And so they're living in a beautiful environment with lower levels of stress and lots of that friendliness in society. And I think that those two factors are the biggest thing why these blue zones are so successful, and these individuals are living healthful, longer lives. It's not necessarily the purple potatoes.
Yeah. And they do not have a lot of money, especially in Costa Rica. It's a very poor country. So like resources are slim, but yeah, that lifestyle and giving back to nature. It's the only place that I've ever composted my bathroom trips. The only place.
Oh,
not only are you like
interesting.
not putting any toilet paper down, but we used, I don't even know, it was raw material to put that back into the earth. I'm trying not to use gross words, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot you told me about that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're incredibly regenerative. Wow. So it is amazing what you can do with so little.
I love that point. So much with so little, so simple. What are the things? Again, there's a community and cultural values that are in contrast with those social ones that we experience in a lot of Western culture of productivity and consumption, which are the reason that we see so much unhealthy aging in our lives. And we can learn to see that, like, oh, that's all around me. So I think that's where I'm going. But in fact, it doesn't have to be that way because there's these beautiful communities like the one we just discussed. And I can embed that into my own life with the right longevity mindset and realize that I can stay strong, I can stay healthy, and I can stay independent as I grow older. And in fact, there's abundant evidence of that all around us. And in my longevity mindset course, I bring up two examples that I call longevity legends. And in my newsletter, I keep sharing new ones when I find them. These are people who are in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are defying the stereotypes of aging. There's Hiro Tanaka, a Japanese sprinter, and he's in his early 90s, and he's at sprint events, sprinting. I have another woman, Shirley Webb, that I mentioned in the course. She's in her 80s, and she's a power lifter. She says, "I'm the powerlifting grandma." Love it. She's inspiring others to get in the gym. She only started in her 70s powerlifting. Imagine if she was doing all the right things since she was in her 20s, like we talked about before. So we haven't even seen how healthy and powerful people can be later in life, because the people who are going to demonstrate that for us are only in their 50s and 60s listening to your podcast right now. So you could be a longevity legend yourself.
Yes. Goals. I love it.
That's, yeah.
And when you bring up such a great point, and I think this is what we love to talk about with biohacking, is just like raising that ceiling. Because a lot of people will go like, yeah, I'm healthy, I'm good enough. But it's like, well, how much better could you be? But we limit ourselves because of what you said, what we see all around us, how we're conditioned to think. But
yeah, those are limiting beliefs. They are limiting beliefs. I use that term very specifically in the mindset course. We have limiting beliefs about aging. And the great things about beliefs is that once we realize that they're there and we see what they are, and we look that they don't actually hold water, they're not actually real, they can almost dissolve in a way that allows us to establish new ones.
Ooh, I like that. Dissolve. Just let them fizzle away. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I before we wrapped up, I did want to circle back to the stress piece, because for me, that's been a big challenge and edge through my health journey. And I heard that we've had a similar life event. So I just thought it was so synchronous. And I wanted to ask you about when you got shingles, because I had shingles, and it was because I was stressed, and it pulled out this dormant virus. And it really, I think, just speaks, one, to mindset and how important it is to regulate the nervous system, because that can just change your circumstances so quickly. And for me, I was like, wait, I'm too young to have shingles. Wait, I'm healthy. What? It was such a huge reality check. So I'm curious, in your experience, what you learned from that, and what could be a takeaway or a lesson in terms of managing stress.
Yeah, well, I did have shingles. And in fact, it was not long after I came back from Costa Rica. And I had some life events that happened that were really confronting. And I was so emotionally stressed, the most emotionally stressed I've ever been in my whole life. And I really had to confront some of my own behaviors in a way that connected back to that characterological patterning that I developed when I was a child, which was around, if I perform, then I'll be loved. If I keep my heart closed off, I'll be safe. And this was really a moment in my life of realizing that that way of living wasn't working, and that I wasn't really showing up authentically, even with the closest people in my life. And when that all fell apart for me, I ended up getting the shingles showing up, and it's this huge emotional stressor. And at the same time, I'm trying to keep my triathlon training up. I'm trying to push ahead with my strength training and just using my mind to overcome my body, and really not listening to my body, not listening to it saying, I'm fatigued, I'm tired, I'm run down. And I realized my own limiting capacity in that. I have to care for myself. I have to be emotionally healthy. I have to be sleeping well. I can't just push, 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 perform, perform, perform. And it was actually this shingles virus that came and wiped me out. Not only do you get the initial wave of it, but then it makes you vulnerable. Your immune system's vulnerable to other viruses. And I actually got COVID not long after that. And it took me a good solid 6 months to recover. And in that period of time, I had to rest a lot and sit with myself a lot. And in fact, felt a lot of depressive energies as I mourned this old way of living and trying to find a new one, which was really about my heart coming online, about rediscovering my own faith, and really understanding something that I learned growing up in the context of me as an adult, of like, hey, if I can feel my heart and I can connect with meaning and purpose, and my faith through that way, that's actually a better way of living my life. And it was like building a new foundation back up through the shingles and the recovery and the space and the downtime I had after that. But now I understand myself so much better. I see how important it is to show up authentically, to love with my heart and not keep it behind a wall, and to always be truthful, not only to myself, but all the people around me, because performing, trying to be something you're not, it's just not worth it. And you know what? That's probably some of the best transformative experience that I've had in terms of my long-term health future, because it's letting me live my life with purpose as an authentic version of myself. And you carry around the scars. I got them on my arm here to remind you.
Wow, what a lesson and journey.
And a gift, a hard one, but
yeah,
worth it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, shingles.
Thank you, shingles.
Thank you, shingles. Wasn't saying that at the time. I'll say that now.
I'm sure.
Me either.
Me either. I was like, I can't imagine. It sounds like one of the worst things to go through.
It's extremely painful, but you really are faced with like, okay, I got here. What can I do to do things differently? It's such a moment of reflection. So, as is all things in life that are painful, hard, right? If we move through it, we grow, we learn, we adapt, and that is how we evolve and live long, healthy lives as humans.
That growth mindset once again.
Yeah. Lifing. You're lifing. So, Nick, what is your purpose? What did you discover?
To really lean into authenticity and caring and connecting at a heart level with people, and not a performative way, and to really go lean further into this whole idea of valuing our health, because each time in my life that I've been confronted with a lack of health, it becomes the thing that matters the most. A man who has his health has 1,000 wishes. The man who does not has one, or woman. Just a saying.
Yep.
There's a proverb there, like, when you're not healthy, all you want is your health back. And Lauren, you know that from working with people who are really unwell, like all they want to do is have that health back. And that is where I see the value that I'm offering to your audience, to my own audience, that we are empowered to shape our own health future. It's not always going to be easy, as we've just discussed. Sometimes It's really hard, but sickness, illness, disease are often here to teach us a lesson that we can grow into greater health from, respect our own limits, respect our own capacity. And that ultimately, when we lean forward into a future with more and more promise and technology, that we have increasing ability to shape our health future to be one that is positive and reduces suffering in the world. And so that really is where I lean into my purpose. And my mother, the mother of my son, got cancer that was diagnosed when he was born. At the same time, I had two friends, all of them in their late 20s, including my ex-wife at the time. Two friends also get cancer. And that taught me a real lesson in mortality. And it taught me the value of health. And it also showed me through my own curiosity following going through all that, that there is this promise of technology to help us reduce human suffering in the world, particularly from all the late stage disease diagnosis that we hear about all the time. I mean, President Biden just got a metastatic prostate cancer diagnosis. A very influential, wealthy, famous person. Why didn't he have all the preventative screening that is in existence right now at his disposal? Well, probably he didn't know about it. That's the biggest problem right now in the world is we have amazing arrays of preventative healthcare technologies that people don't know about. And so in terms of my purpose, I want to help our audiences and bigger audiences over time realize that that's true, because the more of us who are voting with our dollar for preventative healthcare screening, investing in our health and longevity through all the amazing technologies we have at our disposal, the more those resources will grow over time. And that really has the power to create a future where there is far less human suffering in the world. And that wakes me up each day.
That's beautiful. Yeah, well, you're doing a great job educating a lot of people. And you're right. I think there's a huge movement. I think younger and younger generations are looking for the preventative stuff because they are seeing the older generations suffering, like you said, and no one wants to be that way. I don't really have a number in mind of how old I want to live. I just want to know that I'm healthy until my last day. So, do you actually curious, do you have a number? I feel like some longevity enthusiasts are like, 120, 150. Do you even have a number, or are you more on like the health span side of things? And yeah.
Look, I'm bullish on how long I think I can live. I think, we're talking triple digits easy. And
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, 120, 150, I think is totally possible for someone who's my age. I'm 39. Same for you then, because you mentioned you were
Oh,
30,
and Lauren's
right? So,
40. Wow,
and
we're right in the same. Yeah.
right in the demographic. You both look fantastic, by the way. You're doing
Thank you.
well.
Thank
And
you.
You as
You as
well.
well.
We're doing the things.
thank you. We're all doing the things. There's some evidence there, right?
Yeah.
There's something behind what we're saying. But I like to set goals that really motivate me and inspire me based on what I see others doing. And so there was in early April, there was an event called the Penn Relays. It's the longest running track and field event in the US. And there is a field, the Penn Relays, of 80-year-old men who are doing sprints. And you can go find these gentlemen. I recently shared it with my audience in my newsletter. And they're out there sprinting in their 80s. That's how I like to think of it. I like to say, hey, I see you at the Penn Relays when
Heck
I'm 80.
yeah.
I want to be doing
Sprinting.
that. And so you think about the function that you want to preserve. And so then what do I keep doing? I keep sprinting. I keep going to the track. I keep running fast because it makes me feel alive. That's not going to be the same thing for everyone. Some people are going to want to be a sea kayaker or a mountain climber. It doesn't matter what motivates you, but if you start having that vision of yourself, seeing others in the future ahead of you in terms of age that are doing that now at advanced ages and seeing them as markers of inspiration, that's the way I like to think of the answer to that question. It's like, what kind of function can I preserve at an inspirational level long into the future? Because longevity is not a destination. It's not something you can achieve. It's a mindset. It's something you live each day.
That is excellent.
That's
food for thought. I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. I am very inspired by these legends, but even like closer to home, our mom, I'm trying to keep up with her and be able to deadlift as much as she can. So like, that's a very clear marker and inspiration. So yeah, I think that's important to look outside of ourselves and see others that are doing amazing, incredible things.
I use my son, my 11-year-old son, in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
So
that works
right
too.
Oh,
right now I
yeah.
say
Yeah.
I'm always going to be able to do double the pull-ups you can do. And I just get it into his head so he gets competitive with me.
That's
And so
awesome.
yeah, and I know at some point he's probably going to exceed my capability, but I'm not going to let that go easy.
No, that one's for you.
That's
You
good.
keep
That's
that.
good. Yeah, I just saw on Instagram, I think she was 90 or she is 90 and she did a 5 minute plank. I was like, that's a good goal right there. I got it. Better start working on that now, but 50 years from now.
I have a woman
Yeah.
in my church in her 70s that can plank for several minutes, and in fact, I know this because there was a internal little Olympics at kids' church that my son went to, and he came back with the second place medal. And I said, "Oh, well, who beat you?" And he said, "You'll never believe it, Dad, but church grandma beat me at the plank. She can plank for like 5 minutes."
That's
Wow.
amazing. I think the world
Longevity legend.
record for women is 4 hours,
I think it's
which
longer
is
now.
4.5 hours. Well, the male record is like almost 10 hours. It's insane.
Oh my, what do you do while you're planking? Can you like put like some Netflix on an iPad or something?
I hope you're good with meditation. I don't know. That's a long time.
It's a great
Wow.
example of something that doesn't motivate my longevity mindset, planking for that long. But clearly, for whoever has that record, it's doing well for them.
Let them have
Yeah.
it. That's
I'm not
good.
really into any of the endurance stuff. I think about people that run marathons. I'm like, all those hours, I could be doing some other things. I'm more into
Fair
the
enough.
powerlifting. Let's hit it and go for a
Know
nature
yourself.
walk.
Know
Yeah.
what you want to be able to keep doing and keep training it. If you keep what
Yeah.
you train, you keep what you train.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, it's hiking. I don't know. That's just now hitting me. Like, I love hiking. And I just did a pretty intense, moderate intense hike with my husband over the weekend. And we didn't make it to the end because I got to this part where I'm like, this is some tricky footing. There was no one else around and like no cell signal. And so I told my husband, I was like, I just don't feel good about this. I feel like we should turn back. But I want to be able to do stuff like that. So maybe I'll go back and bring some more people and try it again. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
A
You got
great
to,
visual there. A great
Yeah.
visual there. And
Yeah.
again, like you've mentioned hiking. I love hiking. And being able to identify these things that we love doing, that's where you want to take your longevity fitness. It's like, what do I love doing? What do I want to keep doing? Some of that stuff,
Yeah.
if you want to get heart pumping exercise, it's not for everyone at the beginning, but you can learn to love it over time. But don't try to do that if you're trying to get off the couch and get more fit. Like, remember, like, what did I love doing when I was younger, and go back to it.
Mhm.
You don't have to do everything all at once. Pick what you love and lean into that. It will serve you for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
Great advice. Great advice. Uh, can I ask one more question and then I'll
Yeah.
just
I'm here
um
for
We've
it.
kept you all morning. Yeah, go
I
for it.
know. Just one more question is Nick, if you could pick one thing you're really excited to see happen in the longevity space in the next maybe 5, 10, 15 years, what would you say that is?
Well, I'm going to say it's right where I put my money. I've invested in two companies. One is called Prescient here in Australia. The other one is called Ovum. And both of them are using artificial intelligence and all your biological data to really deliver on this personalized guidance that we've been promised for years and years. And the advent of all these large language models, most people think of Chat GPT, there's a whole host of them, has meant that we can now more powerfully than ever analyze our biological data at a very deep level. And so, for example, with Ovum, um, the Ariella, the founder of Ovum, she's this brilliant woman that has a vision for where she wants to take women's health in the future. And of course, one of the biggest things that limits women's health right now is a lack of really good data. Women have been treated like men for so long, and they're completely different biologically for so many reasons. Their hormonal profiles and fertility and menopause just being one major piece of that. And so she's bringing this access to being able to interact with AI in a way where all your data goes to this model. It gets to learn you what motivates.
Oh, did we lose you? Oh no.
Yeah, he froze for me.
Nick, we lost you. Oh no. I
So
think
close.
the new internet, his new house.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. Right at the peak of the answer. See if he comes back. Um, oh, you're
Do me to
back.
re-answer that. Do me to re-answer that question.
We heard well that so that you're gonna send it'll send all the information, figure out all your labs, your motivation, and then that's where we lost you.
Oh, bummer. Okay. All right. How do you want to take that from here in terms of your edit? What's easiest for you?
I think if you just want to just do a recap and close that out, I feel like we heard a bunch. I feel like we
Yeah.
heard enough.
Um yeah, I think we heard most of the it's ovum was the name of it.
Yeah.
Ovum.
Yeah.
Um let me think. I could even like cut back in. I'll say
Or
I'll
just
cut
do
back in
like
so
a
I can edit.
one-liner, just to like you were recapping just about ovum, just to finish it out. I think we
I,
heard a good explanation.
Yeah.
yeah. Great. Okay.
Okay,
I'll pick it up and see. You can see how you can splice it.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
we do
Maybe
that.
I'll just in case, let me jump back in real quick. So I'll say, okay, Nick, we lost you for a second, but you're back. So yeah, just like what was a quick like highlight of ovum, just like a
Yeah.
quick.
So it's ovum is a great example of where I think this is going in terms of personalized health the next 5 to 10 years. That's really powerful for our longevity in that we can take all of our biological data and even how we're feeling, how we've been experiencing our own reality, like at a conceptual level of like our emotional experience, even that's information and data with all that biological metrics like your Aura ring, your Whoop band, your Garmin watch, your Apple watch, all that biological data, your blood data, all this stuff that you are gathering that's been kind of in different places. Well, you can now feed that into these artificial intelligence algorithms if you do it all in the right way, that can then really deliver on this personalized health promise that we've been hearing for so long that it's now
Yeah.
becoming a reality. And so that is really powerful because it's going to be able to give you really clear insights on what to try for your next biohack, what to do for your longevity, and how to keep yourself motivated and engaged. And importantly, particularly for women, how to advocate for yourself when you're working with healthcare practitioners, how to feel like, feel believed for what you're saying and experiencing, and feel heard in terms of what you think's going on for you, and have something to back that up and to advocate for yourself more powerfully. And I think that that's really exciting, particularly for women.
Mhm.
Yeah. We
Yeah, I
need that.
agree.
We really need that. So, all right, you have to keep us posted on that in the future. Very exciting.
Exciting.
I will absolutely do that. You guys are both going to
Great.
get access, definitely.
Great.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Nick, for spending your morning with us. This has been awesome. You shared so much wisdom and advice with our audience. I know you did mention the course briefly, but just give us a little recap on where people can find you, access your course, anything else that you want to direct them towards.
Yeah, great. Well, everything you can find just with my name. So Nick Engerer, NICKENGERER.org. That's my website. It's also my handles on various socials. My business's name is A Longer Life. And on my website, you can find that free longevity mindset course. You can find a bit of information about longevity strategy and longevity lifestyle. And we are always profiling new longevity technologies that can help you optimize your health, that are worth your money, not things that you're going to throw away your money on. So, I'm wearing a high-low band right now. I just did a review on that 24/7 blood pressure monitoring wearable. Amazing for me because I had high blood pressure. I figured out how to biohack it down. I do things like that all the time
Interesting.
for my audience. And you can sign up to our newsletter on the website if you want to know what we're up to.
Very cool.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
We're in the
We'll link
club.
to all of those resources in the show notes so everyone can learn more. All right. Well, thanks, Nick, for joining us. We really appreciate all that you're doing and spending your time with us.
My absolute pleasure, Renee and Lauren. You guys are just so amazing. You're longevity legends in the making for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is
Thank
the
you.
nicest thing. Thank
I
you.
know. Awesome. All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you to everyone that tuned in. We will see you next time.